In recent years, the rights and legal protections of the LGBT community have been in the center of a heated debate in the United States. One debate has focused on sexual orientation discrimination in employment. That is, the behaviors and practices being both deliberate and non-conscious that disadvantage individuals of a particular sexual orientation over individuals of another sexual orientation in employment contexts. Although scholars have produced a considerable amount of research relevant to this debate, most sexual orientation discrimination happens in the hiring process. More generally, the current focus on wage inequality may be limiting because even when wage regressions demonstrate significant income differences between two groups, skeptics might argue that the observed gap reflects a non-observed difference in employment productivity or preferences rather than discriminations as said by Farkas and Vicknair, 1996, and Berg and Lean, 2002. Thus, the lack of direct evidence about sexual orientation discrimination, and hiring discrimination in particular, limits our understanding of the nature and extent of inequalities faced by LGBT Americans. The rights of LGBTQ people have become important topics in political and social discussions for the past decade, resulting in many debates in the federal Congress as well as among state legislatures. In some cases, the issue has become a test for presidential candidates. At least one court has held that LGBTQ individuals are an identifiable minority subjected to discrimination in our society. In addition, school youth are vulnerable to cruel, inhuman, and prejudiced treatment by others while they discover who they are as individuals. One potential explanation for the elevated risk of emotional distress among adolescents with transgendered identity is that these youth must deal with stressors related to having a stigmatized identity. While there has been substantially increased attention to the LGBT community and attitudes towards same-sex relationships have generally become more favorable, social stigma associated with homosexuality and socially prescribed gender roles remains brutal, particularly for young people. LGBT adolescents live in social environments in which they are exposed to negative experiences like social rejection and isolation, diminished social support, discrimination, and even verbal and physical abuse. While RBS data from both Washington, D.C., and Massachusetts show that youth with a minority sexual orientation are more likely to report having skipped school in the past month because they felt unsafe there, as compared to their heterosexual peers. Even though important efforts to improve support for LGBT youth have been undertaken, these youth still face heightened difficulties to compare to their heterosexual non-transgender classmates. Although bullying and physical victimization are problems among youth in general, they are particularly important issues for LGBT youth. Data from Washington, D.C. shows that 31% of youth with a minority sexual orientation reported having been bullied over the past year, compared to only 17% of heterosexual youth. A growing research supports the theory that negative experiences resulting from this stigma can lead to chronic stress that contributes to emotional distress among LGBT adolescents and adults. For example, in two community-based studies of more than 500 lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth, Diagelli and colleagues found that strong link between lifetime victimization directly attributed to sexual orientation-related victimization and mental health problems. In these studies, males reported more sexual orientation-related victimization than females. One of these early school-based studies, carried out by Bontempo and Diagelli, shows that 10% of lesbian and bisexual females and 24% of gay and bisexual males reported high levels of past-year victimization in school, compared to 1% of heterosexual females and 3% of heterosexual males. Those lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth exposed to high levels of victimization had elevated rates of past-year suicide attempts than heterosexual youth exposed to high levels of victimization. According to one survey, 84.6% of LGBTQ students reported being verbally harassed, 40.1% reported being physically harassed, and 18.8% reported being physically assaulted in school. Also, among teenage victims of gay discrimination, 75% experience a decline in academic performance, 39% have truancy problems, and 28% drop out of school. The reasons that high levels of victimization appear to be more toll-taking for the mental health of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth as compared to heterosexual youth remain unclear, but it is possible that those youth have less social support or fewer resources to cope with victimization experiences, or that their victimization experiences are more severe than those of other people.